I was 54 years old when I started retraining as a software engineer. And my journey there literally was I went to an event, non tech related, and somebody heard me speak about something. This woman tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Oh, would you like to come to a Women in Tech meeting?" I thought, why? She said, "Well, this is a Google building." I thought, Google? I didn't see any sign that related to technology. Anyway, a few days later, I went to this Women in Tech meeting, and the whole world of technology opened up to me. And I dove in. I heard the word JavaScript, had no idea what it meant. I thought, "Well, that's not going to be difficult to learn that." My own sense of curiosity and adventure led me there. And let's just say, for the next 3 years, I certainly had dalliances with JavaScript. And so my journey into technology to retrain as a software engineer, I really thought it was going to be, learning the language of coding, which will then help me to create something. But actually, I did learn that. And another lesson behind that was actually learning JavaScript and learning the suite around engineering actually highlighted and taught me about business systems in a way. Why? Because there are commonalities between them. It's about being curious and it's about problem solving and building something from nothing. So if you're a woman who's in her 50s and 60s, and like me, you're into reinvention and pivoting your life or wanting to build something new, then lean into today's show because I'll be sharing 5 principles that I gathered as a result of retraining as a software engineer, where I started at 54, never seen a line of code, and finished with my qualifications at 57. So, this wonderful world of technology opened me up because the first wall that I hit was the deep levels of frustration. I mean, yeah, JavaScript sounded quite intriguing, and it was tough. It was really, really hard. I hadn't studied computer science. I wasn't really into physics and chemistry and maths as I was moving through the traditional education system. So it wasn't my strength. And so there was a whole layer of education, whether you got it formally or otherwise, that I certainly was missing. And there's a part of me that's very tenacious, and I kept pushing through. So I started this very comprehensive online program, which was fantastic. I did qualify in the end, but it was really, really hard to learn the syntax, and not knowing why a line of code did not work, and sort of brute forcing my way through it. And so I remember there were days and weeks and sometimes months staring at a particular piece of code and not knowing, why isn't my code working? And at the time I was going to a couple of code camps, and I remember one of our wonderful engineering brothers just looking at it and just said, "Oh, you've missed off a semicolon." I can tell you that really does breed a lot of frustration. But nonetheless, I kept going and I kept going and I kept going. And eventually I got there. And so the first principle that I'm applying from the world of JavaScript and coding through to, if you're someone who wants to build a one person solo business or even an enterprise, is to start small. Tiny, tiny, tiny. My first line of code that I wrote was "Hello world." Everybody who starts in the world of coding, I no doubt, would be the first line of code they write. And it's amazing. So start small and then you're going to build in layers. So when it comes to JavaScript, and JavaScript's a language that's in the browser on your laptop computer. And so you would type in console.log and then it would print out "Hello world." So when it comes to your solo business, what you're doing is you're starting small. It could be one offer, one client, and one result. So I'm working with a beauty consultant, And we're looking at her branding and, just elements of her business, of her solo business. So she's got a myriad of products. But actually, what she wants to do is to position herself as a premium brand. And so from all of her products, she has this pair. It's a beautiful face cream and hand cream. So she's packaging that as one offer. She's now clear about who her avatar is, one person. And when I'm talking about avatar, what I mean here is about the audience. Who is it that you're talking to? And what I find is that when I'm creating products or when I wrote my book, yes, my book, Nonprofit Booster, 10 Ways to Build a Successful Organization, what helped me then and what helps me today is to have a clear idea who I'm speaking to as I'm building out my product. So when I wrote my book, for example, I had a very clear sense of who my avatar is. She's a real person. Her name is Kome. And it's about understanding all of the challenges that she faces. So when you are building your one product, you're starting with one, you're going to build others on top of it, and you're going to build in more complexity. Start with one, okay? One product, one client, and one service and outcome. So that's the first one. Start small, then layer later. The second one is to get rid of the idea of tasks. We live in a way and we live in a world whereby we've got a to-do list, for those of you who are that way inclined, and you tick off the task on your to-do list. JavaScript and engineering generally wasn't about to do this task. It was more about understanding systems that work together to bring about an outcome. Because as coders, we don't just write random lines of code because we think, oh, that's an interesting way of writing code. It really is about, it's with a view to do something. And what helps us do this, and we can do this something, we use a function. So we create functions that help us do things. So I'll give you an example. Email welcomes. So we've all sent emails and we've all received them. So a function could be like, you'd have the word function and you want to greet. So you would have function greet, and then in parentheses, you would have the word name, for example, and then you would console log it, and then it would print hello, Bybreen, or hello, David, whatever the name is. And so functions help you to package something, and then it's reusable. So every time you are sending an email, and if it's to your mailing list, for example, the back end will have that as a version, all right, as a template. And I want you to think of your business systems like client orientation, content creation, onboarding. They are your systems, and they literally are the functions in your business. Okay, so think about it from that point of view, because what you're aiming to do here is to build it once. These systems, you build them once and then you can use them repeatedly. So I publish an online weekly magazine called The London Palette. I absolutely love it. Have been doing it for the last 15 months. And in order for me to create it, whether I'm doing work offline, I'm literally in the streets of London, seeing what's happening, or whether I'm working online, I have very clear systems that help me. So 15 months in, the complexity has been cut. Time has been saved because I have systems, which my different systems are my functions. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3, in writing code, is that we hit a wall, and that means that there's a piece of code that doesn't work, it's broken, and we need to debug it. And then once we debugged it, we're iterating to see what works. And iteration just means, what's the problem, tracing the problem, then tweaking it testing it again. If it's not quite working, we're tweaking and testing until the code runs. The same thing applies when it comes to your business. Absolutely does apply. What you're doing here is that you're continuing to test and iterate, test and iterate. So it could be that you've launched a sales page, or you've launched a product and you've had this really great idea. It's been bubbling away forever. And you just thought, yeah, this is brilliant. I love this. And then you launch it to crickets, absolute crickets. Nobody's interested, or maybe they could be interested. But what you have to do is to think about how you can iterate on it. How can you turn it around? How can you work in a way whereby it's like, oh, I need to tweak this in order to do that? Okay. So, number 4 is about scalability. Another aspect of coding is there's a concept called loops, and loops help us to become more efficient so that we're, instead of writing the same code 5 times or the line of code, we're just writing and rewriting it. We create loops. And what loops actually help us do is to bring about more efficiency. So we create it once. And then if we want to keep repeating that task, we can do so. So loops help us when we're thinking about how do we create efficiencies in our business. Same way that a block of code, we don't have to continue writing it. We will just write a loop, and the loop will then undertake that function. It then creates scalability. Now, when we're applying this concept to a solo business, what we're looking at here is within even the seed of the idea, or even if you've got your first micro version, what could be looped? What could be iterated? What can help you here is start to think about the templates and the frameworks and the repeatable systems. Like I mentioned with the London palette, I certainly have frameworks that help me whether I'm working offline in the streets of London, or whether I'm doing desk research, or whether I'm in conversation with somebody. I have my systems that create more efficiency. And from there, you will be able to create leverage, which equates to scalability. So that's number 4. And then number 5, the wonderful thing that really sort of augmented a natural way of being for me is curiosity. Even from when I was a child, I was very curious. And technology, because it's always changing and moving, I got my certificates in 2020, just as, I'm not saying that engineering is dead, it certainly is not. But what has peaked it slightly is the rise and the dominance of artificial intelligence. However, as somebody who learned the rigor of engineering, and I have to say I was greatly aided by a phenomenal mentor that I managed to work with post me getting my qualifications, because even though I'd got my pieces of paper and it's great, I just knew there were things that were missing. There was just things that were really, really, really hard. And it's like, I'm sure there has to be a simpler way. So JavaScript, my wonderful mentor, Johnny, who was an engineer at the Guardian newspaper, who helped me really to peel back the layers of technology so I could really see that the different moving parts, and more importantly, understanding the why of it. So that really just fed into my curiosity. And from the curiosity, it was like, wow, there, I could do this, or that could lead to that. Now, if you're a woman between 50 and 70, I'm not saying curiosity does not exist within other demographics, but you're my primary audience. We have lived 5, 6, 7 decades. And within that, we have trillions of pieces of data. We've got lived experiences, talents and skills and wisdom. And we might be thinking, wow, I've got this invisible portfolio. but I'm not quite sure how to pull it together. But my curiosity is pulling me towards it's time to reinvent, it's time to pivot, it's time to build. Your curiosity is, I'm going to say, up there in terms of the type of skill that you really need. And I just know that becoming a software engineer really added to that, it embedded that. And one of the things that also helped me was understanding like core principles like algorithms. Now, algorithms we hear every single day. You know, the algorithm is doing this to our social media or not. Um, but in the context of understanding it from an engineering point of view, I really struggled with data structures and algorithms and JavaScript. I'm telling you, I had a dalliance with all three of them. But simply put, an algorithm literally is a recipe that takes you from A to Z. It's a way to think sequentially, to think logically. And by peeling back the layers or lifting the veil on coding, I was able to really think, that's what that concept means. And that then pulled my curiosity forward. And so, as somebody who's on her reinvention journey, curiosity is a phenomenal skill for you to either tap into, recognize it's your edge, coupled with the phenomenal skills and talents and experiences that you have. We've lived, we've adapted, and we've learned loads, and that is not to be minimized. So that's it. What did JavaScript teach me? It taught me the capacity and the ability just to continue thinking laterally. It also taught me about deepening my understanding of what it means to think systematically, logically, sequentially, which tapped into the left side of my brain. But I'm not a rigid somebody, and nor are you. And so what I do and what I've done is that I just continue to layer and synthesize. And one of my tools of synthesization is I layer in astrology. So astrology is one of my modalities, and which then helps me bring out what is unique and distinctive about me. And you will have your own version as well. So if any of this appeals to you, any of this that you're like, I didn't know that, or you're nodding your head, then please subscribe to the channel, because here I will be sharing more insights, more principles and philosophies around how we as women, I'm now 62, but women between 50 and 70 are my primary audience, how we can continue to or think about how to reinvent our lives based on the phenomenal wisdom we're sitting in. Now, if you're ready to dive in a bit deeper and you want to start pulling together, because you've got this vast montage of insights, and you're ready to build out your framework for a premium offer, then click the link below and book in for a VIP session, which is the architect of the Encore business. And I'll see you on the other side. Stay well. Share this with a woman who's between 50 and 70, who you know is keen to or is interested in reinventing her life. Then send her over here to the Smart Years. Stay well. I'll see you again on the next show. Thanks for joining me. My name is Breen Samuels. Bye.